All right, guys, welcome back to episode number 5 of the Jake Shields podcast. Jake, what's going on, man? Week off. You were in California. First off, how was
Yep.
that?
It was nice, man. Went back, being from California, visiting visit Santa Monica. Super nice up there. Still a little weird because they got some COVID restrictions in Vegas. Everything's been 100% removed a month ago, so everyone's got their masks on and stuff. So I had to readjust to that. But it was nice seeing some friends out there and being by the ocean.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. It's weird because you're in Vegas. I know tons of people now are fully no lockdown, no
hmm
mask, everything. So yeah, that would be weird to go back
Yeah,
to.
so it's weird when you get used to being completely normal, then you go back to places that are trying to hold on to lockdown. So supposedly California's pulling those all next week. We'll see if they actually do.
Yeah, I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping they do. But we have a massive week here. It is the fight week of
Yes.
UFC 263. So I want to jump into that right away with you here, Jake. We have the rematch of Davidson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. They're coming off a draw for the flyweight title. Figgy sitting at 21-1. Moreno goes to 18-5-2 after that. And how do you think this one goes here? I heard some rumblings that Figueroa was hurt during the first fight, but I'm not sure. I mean, it was razor thin last time.
Yeah, first off, I want to say these aren't guys that have followed their career for that long, so I can't give the best analysis. But having watched the last fight, I mean, that was a phenomenal fight on both their parts. They just brought it. But I think I'll give a slight edge to Figueroa. I think he's got a little more power, and he looked really dangerous. Looked like he had a little, looking at his record, looks like he has a little more weapons. But Moreno's got heart, man, so you can't count that out. And that's what he's going to keep coming. He's got pretty good. He's good everywhere. He's well-rounded, and he's heart, and he's going to make, that Mexican fighter that they say that's, I came up training with all Mexicans with like Gilbert and Nick and Nate, and he's got that Mexican heart where they just keep coming at you.
Yeah, exactly. The fight doesn't stop with those guys, man. I'm
Those guys
with
are
you. I
tough,
think
man. I trained with those
I,
guys so much, so I know how it is. They just keep coming at you, even if you're beating them up. They just like keep coming, keep coming. It's that heart they have.
Yeah, man, exactly. The fight's never over until someone stopped. I mean, everybody knows the great. I think it was Joe Riggs or somebody and Nate. I think they or Nick. Their fight like spilled into the hospital when both guys went to the hospital. So
That was great. They went to they had to book to the hospital afterwards, and they got in a big brawl at the hospital. There's some interview you have to listen to. Can't remember where it is, but Joe Riggs telling the story, and Nick calls in and just starts going off on him, and it's great to hear Nick's perspective because in his mind, when Joe came to his side of the hospital, he had to fight him. They had a full-on brawl broke out at the hospital. They were just going at it. Hospital staff didn't know what to do. Finally, the cops came, and the cops go, "Oh, Nick Diaz," started taking pictures with him. The hospital staff was like, "What the hell? You're supposed to be arresting these guys. You're sitting there taking selfies with them instead."
yeah, and Riggs was in a bad way too before he got beat up. But yeah, I don't know what he was doing over there. He came to his side of the hospital, and like you said, these guys, it's a fight every single time. They're gonna bring it every single time. Speaking of bringing it every time, the next fight we have at UFC 263, Israel Adesanya is back in the division, taking on Marvin Vettori for the second time. Adesanya is obviously coming off his first ever loss. He went up to light heavyweight. That didn't go well for him. Now, this is the second fight time they fought. Marvin Vettori and Adesanya went to a split decision back in 2018. But Vettori, the Italian, he hasn't lost a fight since then. Looked pretty good against Kevin Holland in his last fight. He's back in action, but is he going back to his division? Do you expect Israel Adesanya to come back down and continue his dominant form?
Man, this is a good fight. I just went and rewatched the first one, and it was close. Marvin was an aggressor. He was coming forward. It was just Izzy was able to slightly stay out of his range and slightly land the better strikes, but Marvin was hitting him some. He just couldn't quite find that range. He had success in the third round where he took him down though. So I think if he has the strategy and works more wrestling with it, obviously mixing his strikes with it, I think he could pull out an upset. But again, I'm picking Izzy. I think Izzy's never lost at that weight. He's dominant, and you got to go with the champ. But this is an exciting fight. It wouldn't be a shocker if Marvin pulled it out.
No, exactly. I'm on the exact same side as you. I don't think. I know everyone's like, "Oh, well, Izzy's going down. He's going to be fine." That's where he dominated. You got to wonder. Now, you fought coming off of a loss. Is there a difference in your confidence as opposed to when you have some? Yeah, Izzy had won what 20 straight fights or something like that,
Yeah,
and then you got to come back for your first fight ever following a loss. What mentally goes into that?
yeah, it can work either way. I mean, usually it's probably a little more negative because these guys like Izzy was probably feeling invincible, just chewing through everyone, and then he has that loss, so it might be a little shake on his ego, but it might also might wake the fire under his ass and really piss him off to want to go out there and make an example of his next opponent. And he lost up a weight. You know, he was clearly the smaller opponent out there, not made a difference. Now he's going back where he's not going to be the smaller guy, and it's gonna and he, you know that's why they have weight classes. You see the difference there. And he's not a guy that gained a bunch of weight. He went up and fought at the same weight, and it was just made a big difference.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have to agree there until we see Israel Adesanya lose at middleweight. I'm sticking with him. But Marvin Vettori, like you said, if he gets on top of him, for a middleweight, he's a big, solid, strong guy. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't want that guy laying on top of you for 5 rounds. So like you said, if he can get that fight down onto the ground, he's going to give Adesanya problems. And it was a great first fight back in 2018. You got to imagine they're even better competitors and athletes now. So that will be a great event. Now we're moving forward to the actual main event of UFC 263. Usually we save the main event for last, but we did save the main event for last. We have Leon Edwards, the number 3 ranked fighter in the welterweight division, taking on your buddy Nate Diaz here. And first off, insane for Nate to come and fight Leon Edwards after the time off. And let's be honest, I think there's a lot of guys in that division that don't even want to fight Edwards. First off, I mean, I think a lot of people that have followed Nate will know, but just take us into what it's like with him and that real world experience where, you know, Nate's going to come out and fight. But again, he could have taken an easier fight, I'm sure, but he comes out and takes on legitimately the hardest opponent possible.
Yeah, Nate's always been a fighter, never to dodge anyone. You know, I haven't, unfortunately, I've been with him for this camp, but I'm actually going right after this interview and heading out there to meet him up there in Arizona. So excited to see his mindset. But as far as I know, he's doing good, had a good camp. And you know, Nate, you can never look past Nate. I looked at the fight odds the other day, and he was like a 4 or 5-1 underdog. I think that's just insane and disrespectful to have him be that big of an underdog. So it's, Nate's got amazing hands, good boxing. I think he has an advantage there. You know, Edwards does probably have better kicks and elbows, but I think Nate's got better conditioning, better boxing, better jiu-jitsu. So it's not Edwards is definitely not an easy fight, but I'm picking Nate, and I can't believe the odds were so towards Edwards.
Yeah, I was very, very surprised myself to see Nate Diaz come in as the biggest underdog on the entire card. I'm with you. Like, do they forget who this is? I don't understand how you come that far of an underdog. I guess coming off of that fight with what's his name, Masvidal, and it didn't go his way, maybe. Yeah. But I don't know about that. I think that if you can get Nate Diaz at 5 and 6 times your money, you got to take that bet all day long. So go out to your DraftKings, FanDuel, wherever else you bet, and throw some money on Nate. But what do you think he's going to have to do to get through a guy like Edwards, young, hungry contender? Do you think Nate's just got to stick to the fundamentals, or what are you specifically looking for him to do?
I think fight how he always does. He's a pressure fighter. He goes out there and tries to break guys. I think it's going to be the same. It's not going to be an easy fight. You know, it's not Nate's not a one-punch knockout guy. He's a volume puncher. He puts you down with volume, or, you know, he can catch you in submissions and transitions. So I think he's going to go out there and just put pressure. I think it'll go a few rounds. It won't be easy, but I think he'll wear Edwards down and break him. Edwards hasn't never fought anyone with the pressure that Nate brings.
No, that's for sure. He's never fought anyone with the like you said, that ability to just want to come forward, keep fighting, take the fight to the opposition. I think it's going to be great. I love seeing Nate back in action, and now we've even heard Dana's changed his tune. He said in an interview yesterday that it's looking very likely Nick's going to fight in 2021. You got any insight on that? Throw you on the spot a little bit here?
Yeah, like I said, Nick's been taking it serious in training and wants to fight. It's just a matter of working out the deal with Dana. I haven't seen him personally in a while. I'll talk to him briefly here and there. I'm going to see him tonight when I head out to Arizona, but I know he's been working hard. All the videos he looks in shape. Everyone I've talked to said he's looking great. It's like the old Nick, maybe even better. You know, he looks bigger and stronger, and I can't wait to go train with him this week.
Yeah, he looks fantastic. I can't wait to check in next week and hear how that goes. And if you guys want to look great like Nick Diaz, go on over to fusionfightgear.com and hit promo code Jake AJJ, all capitals, for 20% off. Grab yourself a rash guard, grab yourself a gi. Always looking good. And for our followers from the Australia, New Zealand parts, down under, don't worry, we got you too. You go on over to ponchomichael.com.au. Same discount code Jake AJJ, 20% off your order. Now, speaking of things that are insane, and people that are insane named Jake. Jake Paul. This has been something to watch. He is officially fighting a guy you fought before, Tyron Woodley. That will go down in August. Now we have Jake Paul versus MMA, everybody says, but there's a different way to look at this now because after the Tyron Woodley event, I have to be honest with you. I think he did a great deed for a lot of the UFC fighters out there, and he continues to shine light on something that's clearly an issue, and that's fair pay for fighters.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. He keeps bringing that up, and it is a big issue. I mean, something I haven't been following that closely, but recently I started looking at the fight pay again, and throughout most of my career, the fight pay has been slowly going up, so I wasn't as angry because I saw constant improvements in fights. But about 7 years ago, it just stopped going up, and the UFC is not paid anymore. Bellator and PFL a lot of times are paying more than the UFC at the top level. So most sports are paying around 50% revenue to their athletes. UFC is only paying about 10 to 15%, and that just doesn't seem fair to give the athletes such little. They could easily double every fighter's contracts and they'd still only be paying 30%. So it would make sense just not even if they double it, they paid them a little more, athletes would be happy and they could keep making a huge profit. And I don't think the UFC should be making a profit. I have no problem with Dana making a good pay and all these guys getting paid. They built the sport and they deserve it, but the athletes deserve it as well.
So looking at a guy like Paulo Costa, right? This is where this all kind of started from too. He gets into it, says he's not fighting after the Jake Paul rant. He says he wants $350,000 to fight, and this is a guy who just fought for the title and lost to Ariel Adesanya, the champion. So for him to ask for only $350,000 and see a guy like Dana White, who is worth more than God, essentially said you should just have started a YouTube channel then, and either you can fight professionally for a living or don't. As a former fighter and someone who worked for the organization, how does that make you feel when you hear something like that? Because I saw a comment from you on Instagram that I thought was true, where you said Dana White will bet $350,000 on a game of blackjack.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. They don't want to pay the guys that. It's like the guys, Paulo Costa is not a no one. To act like he's a no one. This guy was a main event fighter. He just fought for a title. He's not asking for millions. He's asking for $350,000. You have Jake. They act like he's asking Jake Paul all money, but Jake Paul's making $20 million. It's almost 100 times more. So it'd be different if he was asking for millions, but he's not. And the weird thing is, when you say this, like half the fans jump on Dana's side, being like, "Oh, they don't deserve that. They don't deserve that." But like, why do they deserve 10% and the UFC and the suits at Disney deserve 90%? Like again, I think Dana definitely deserves to be rich, but he doesn't need to make that much more. They need to. I don't know. I don't know exactly how unions work, and it is extremely tricky in fighting, but it might come to the point where they need that. You have you have John Jones on strike. You have Francis Ngannou starting to bring it up. You have Paulo Costa. It's getting to the point where a lot of these guys don't want to fight. I know Nate Diaz has not fought before. One time I was arguing with Dana over it. He was talking about how Nate doesn't deserve an extra like $30,000 per fight a few years ago, and he's sitting there losing $20,000 every hand he plays blackjack. It's just kind of absurd.
Yeah, and that'll piss you off when you're in the real world situation, right? Which I could tell when this came up, this was going to be a big topic for us. But let's switch it back to Jake Paul taking on Tyron Woodley. You fought Tyron. Now, I respect Ben Askren a lot. I think he was a good athlete. I thought he didn't take that fight serious, and there was absolutely zero boxing ability there. Tyron's definitely a different animal, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, Tyron's is a huge power puncher. His style, I think, though, is better for MMA than boxing. He has that one punch knockout power, which is great with the 4-ounce gloves, but he's not really a combination puncher. And also the bigger gloves can pull some of that power. He's not putting 4 or 5 punch combos together. He's throwing single shots, and he's also 4 or 5 years past his prime. I'm still going to pick Tyron to win this fight, but the Paul brothers, obnoxious they are, they take boxing serious and they can box. So it's actually an interesting fight. Hate to admit it, but these guys can box.
Yeah, absolutely they can. Now switching gears here, we had Mayweather take on Logan Paul last Sunday. The fight ends with no winner. Logan Paul goes the distance. Now there are some people that have a clip here, and I pulled it, and I'm going to show it to you here. This will probably be the first time you see it, that think Floyd Mayweather knocked him out by an accident and held him up. Do you think Logan is out here? I'm going to pull a video on the screen, and then we'll talk about it.
Obviously at 44.
You see that hold up there?
That, but it looks like he might have dropped him. he would have got back up, because if it was, it would have been a quick little flash knockout. But it looks like he could have possibly stunned him up. It's hard to be for sure from that clip, but he definitely looked like he hurt him.
Yeah, he almost looked like he went a little limp there. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I know that everybody that's on the side of these are a circus, these are a gong show, these fights are bad for boxing, etc., thought for sure that he let him survive there. What do you think of these big events and like a kid? Like, I know these guys have mad influence, but like, what is your take on even Logan Paul getting into the ring with Floyd Mayweather 50-0?
Yeah, man, I know they get so much hate, but he's taking it really serious. He's boxing heavy. It's like, clearly Floyd's way past his prime. I think he's like 40 pounds smaller, like how much shorter? I don't know, 6-7 inches. So there's huge size, huge age difference. I think like close to 20 years age difference. So there's so many advantages that Paul has. So, but Floyd's out there. He's still dominating the fight. I know technically it was a draw, but Floyd clearly dominated. The thing is, Floyd's not a power puncher. He's not a huge finisher, and he's not a big risk taker. So he goes out there and he knows he's winning the fight. I know under these rules you need a knockout to win, so he should have probably hunted for a knockout. But in his mind, he's picking him apart, winning the fight. He's cool just to cruise to an easy $100 million, and who can blame him?
Yeah, when you're talking that kind of money, who cares about being the best boxer of all time? Like, this entertainment, right? You have to understand that like these events, even when you see like Triller Fight Club and everybody and all that, it's like, man, at the end of the day, these are more entertainment.
Exactly. We're not
pay-per-views than fighting. Like, if you go in there hoping to see like a great event of fighting, I think you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, at this point, Logan and Jake Paul aren't claiming they're the best in the world. If they start claiming that's a different story, then have them fight a world champion and get knocked out. But they're not making that claim. They're picking fights of guys that are past their prime to make big money fights. And, they got the balls to step in there and train, and they don't need to do this, and they're doing it. At some point, if they're winning, they're going to probably take more serious fights as they get better. But, I mean, that was a big fight. Even though Floyd's way past his prime and way smaller, that's still, one of the best boxers of all time. He got in there and lasted 8 rounds. Not a lot of guys can do that. And, again, Woodley's past his prime, and he's pulling him out. He's a better MMA fighter than boxer, but you're still fighting a dangerous striker that might knock you the hell out, So this is he's taking a big risk fighting Woodley.
Is Woodley hit hard? You've been punched by him?
He didn't land any clean shots on me because I felt it I blocked his shot, so I could definitely feel the power through it. But luckily, I was able to block everything and get out of his range. But he definitely, you can feel the power coming.
All right, that's all right. Yeah, I mean, hey, at the end of the day, when you're gonna generate a couple $100 million, if you're Floyd, you're gonna take home $100 million. Mm-hmm. You take those fights, these exhibition fights, all day long when you're making more money than the guys fighting for real. But that's just the power of the internet. These like a little bit to what Dana said. These guys have been going at it now. Like, how old's Logan Paul? 30 years old, 31. Like,
probably younger.
He's legitimately been on YouTube for like 15 years or something like that, doing this 10 years. Like, so of course they've built a huge following, and man, at the end of the day, viewership equals advertising, advertising equals money, right? So at the end of the day, these are business fights.
Yeah, and how great has it been for Floyd Mayweather at 44 to still goes to these massive fights? Because Floyd Mayweather's a great fighter, and he probably could fight world champion still, but I mean, who knows? He might could even win, but he'd definitely be a good chance of losing. But he's going out there getting these massive paydays and fights he could win and still keeping his name relevant. And it's like, I don't think anyone's ever done this before, at least not at his level. And it's great he's doing this. And like I said, it's also waking up people to the pay. He's getting $100 million, and it's like guys like John Jones, he's not as big of a draw as Floyd Mayweather. We look at that and be like, well, if he can get $100 million, maybe I should be able to get $20 million to fight Nagano.
Mm-hmm. And so he's never gotten any more than $500,000.
Yeah, so if Nagano sees this, maybe I should be able to get $10 million. So if these guys are getting $120 million for their pay, maybe those guys should be able to split $30 million between their pay.
And I don't think that that's a crazy ask. And like you brought up a union earlier, and that I could definitely see that being something that comes out of this maybe. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Jake or Logan Paul start their own fight management business for MMA fighters. I think that the Pauls versus Dana White and the mixed martial arts community is only getting started. But let's bring it back to mixed martial arts. Last Saturday, we had the UFC Vegas 28. Rosenstruck won in the final seconds of the round for the second time in his career. He pulls out the win. For you, where does Rosenstruck go next? Because for me, you look at Curtis Blades coming off of that loss against Derek Lewis. That might be a great test for Rosenstruck.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. There's not real depth at the heavyweight. Nagano ran through them, so it's kind of like this just goes right back to why they need Jones so bad. They don't have that depth. It's hard to give after Nagano's next fight. Who are they gonna have for him? They don't have anyone built up. It's gonna take a few fights to build any of these guys.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I think Rosenstruck is coming into that level now where they have to at least try him against somebody. Now, he's not going to get a Derek Lewis or, like you said, Francis or Stipe, or because of John Jones, there's like this log jam at the heavyweight division that I think will need to clear out first. But I was pretty impressed with his win.
Yeah, I know he looked good. It was he was well composed, slowly stalked him down, and then he landed those good shots right at the end. At first, I thought the bell rang. Then I realized it was a stoppage. He reacted right in time and finished the fight.
Yeah, and then we had Ponzinibbio took out Beza by unanimous decision. Now for Beza, and I could be saying his last name wrong, Miguel. Yeah. I apologize if I am. How do you come back from your first loss, mentally? Sometimes it's just a young guy ends up taking a loss to a veteran. How do you come back from something like that if you're him?
Like I said, a lot of times you gotta just go. A lot of times it can make you like more hungry. You realize, damn, I gotta make some changes. I gotta train harder. Sometimes guys are on win streaks to get a little complacent, like, oh, I'm beating everyone. Don't need to train that hard. Sometimes the loss can wake them up and snap them out of it, or it can break guys' confidence. You see it go both ways.
Yeah, I mean, right? Well, sometimes in MMA, it's like, yeah, you lose one win or you get one loss like Vettori and you win 5 fights in a row, or you lose the belt like Tyron Woodley and you still get placed against top guys and all of a sudden you've lost 2 fights and they're not extending or 4 fights and they're not extending your contract, right? So it can really go either way. Like you said, hopefully for Miguel, he just gets in there and keeps going after it because he's a great fighter and I think he has a very, very bright future inside the octagon. And I think that he'll be someone that the fans want to see for a long time. Now, speaking something the fans want to see for a long time, Colby Covington is getting what he wants. According to UFC President Dana White, he says that Covington versus Usman is the next fight they'll be making. I know there was some confusion out there because he said that was going to be happening. And then you had Usman and I believe his manager Ali kind of talking about Michael Chiesa, who sits, I think, about 7th in the rankings off the top of my head. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe Jack can check that for us. But listen, this is the fight we wanted to see as fans. We got it. This is the right call, right?
I think so. The first fight was really good and competitive. It's the toughest fight that I thought Usman had, at least in a long time. It was a grinder. It was exciting. They're going to talk crap. They're going to build hype, and not just the hype. I think he earns the fight. He's Covington's tough. He might not be the most likable guy, but he's tough, and it builds hype. And they generally don't like each other. They're both improved. I think Usman might be a little more improved. It'll be interesting to see, but this is the guy that I thought pushed him the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chiesa actually is 6th ranked in the division, so I was a little wrong there. But I agree, he pushed him the most. Everyone knew going into that round 5, it was 2 rounds Usman, 2 rounds Colby. Kamaru does what he has to do. Colby clearly had a facial injury. Some say broken jaw. I know he denies it, but I don't really trust much of what Colby Covington says.
He says he's not the most trustworthy guy.
No, I mean, listen, he thought that the stoppage was fake. He thought that they were calling fake eye shots and he said that it was a politically motivated match from the ref because I guess the ref is he's into woke politics and he was just mad Colby went to the White House. I think that's all bullshit.
Yeah, sounds like a bunch of BS. I think it was. I can't remember exactly what happened, but it seemed like he was pretty hurt. So.
Yeah.
But I remember being a good back and forth war. I haven't watched it in a while. I was there live. So I didn't have the best seats, couldn't see that was going on, but I remember just going back and forth, beating each other up, and it was an exciting fight. So I'm down to see it again. Usman's kind of ran through everyone.
How do you see this one going?
I mean, you got to pick Usman. When someone's looked that great, he won the first one. I'm not going to pick against him, so I pick Usman. It'll be interesting to see though. Does he beat him a lot worse, or is it a really close war again? And I definitely wouldn't count Covington out either. And then this gives chance to have Chiesa fight someone else, and if he wins that fight, then he can earn a title shot.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's still 1 fight away. I think that was Ali and Usman kind of just ruffling the feathers of Covington a bit, right? He was starting that Usman's ducking me talk. So it is funny to right after the fight act like you're completely overshadowing and overlooking him. I thought that was funny. You have any experience with Ali, his manager? You know him well, or?
Yeah, no, I know him really well. I worked with him some. He helped me with some fights. I wasn't exclusive with him, but he helped me out with some contracts. He helped me find some sponsors. I know he's a very controversial figure in the industry. I mean, I understand why, because he talks a lot of crap. He gets in fights sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of the fighters do like him though, because they can relate to him. He comes in and trains with us. He can relate to fighters better than a lot of these suits, you know. So that's
yeah,
the downside.
absolutely.
Maybe is guys like, oh, he doesn't act like the suits, but he comes in, trains with us, gets beat up by us, and he's actually pretty talented. I've seen him beat up some fighters before, and you know, not many managers to get in there and get beat up by their fighters, and not the highest level guys, but I've seen him toss some guys, and if you get the fight, you know, Ali's gonna back you up. You know, he's gonna.
Yeah, you saw it with Covington, right? They ran into each other at the buffet line in a hotel, and Ali was right in there. Covington, you know, he was kind of outnumbered there. But yeah, I was just wondering because I know he got in the middle of that. I know him and Khabib and Conor. He got into that as well when Conor brought up that stuff and whatever. But yeah, no, I was just wondering if you had any like
I've been with a few. I know
with
him and like Nate got into it for a minute, but we were able to squash that. I'm like, oh, I don't have to punch Ali, but they were able to. Because Nate got in a brawl with Khabib at one of the events, and then Ali's managing Khabib, so it got a little weird for a second, but they were able to squash it. And you know, I've always got along with him good. He's a guy who's for me easy to work with, easy to relate to. Maybe not the best for a manager getting fights, but it's something fighters can relate to.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it is cool to know that he's like at least in the field. Like you said, he'll roll with you. He's not just some old ass guy trying to make money off of the fighters, right? He understands it. But yeah, so Nate goes up to Khabib and slapped him. That was during your fight, right?
I was fighting. I was in the cage with Paul Harris, and I see a brawl going on. I didn't want to like focus on it, so I didn't even look at the brawl because I didn't want to know what was going on. And I found out later it was a huge brawl between Nate. Khabib was like, I guess, taking a picture of Nate in the background, like kind of mocking him, and Nate saw that, so he walked up and just slapped him right in front of all of his Russians, and a big fight broke out. A bunch of his crew came in, a bunch of the Russians or Dagestans came in because. One thing about those guys, they are down to fight. And, you know, a big brawl broke out. I think a brawl broke out again after the fight outside the casino between the Stockton crew and the Dagestan crew. And it was, but, you know, they might not like each other, but they respect each other. Because, you know, Khabib respects him. I'm sure Nate respects. He might not like Khabib, but he respects him. The guy's down. He's legit. He's down to fight anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, one of the best to do it for sure.
To the Stockton crew, where they're loyal to their boys and back each other up. And they're always down to scrap. Kind of like when Dylan Dennis and Conor disrespect him the full fight, you know, he's after the fight, he leaped over the cage and kicked Dylan in the face. A lot of the MMA reporters got mad about that, but the fighters and fans loved it because especially Dylan Dennis, one of the most unlikable guys in the sport. I don't know exactly what he said to Khabib, but whatever he said, I'm for sure he deserved to get kicked in the head.
Oh man, if I had a nickel for every time Dylan Dennis has said like, "Yo, send the contract, I'll fight this guy." So I'm talking about Logan Paul because Scott Croker said he could fight in Bellator if he wanted to, and he was like, "Send the contract." If I had $1 for every time Dylan Dennis said he would fight someone and didn't sign the fight, I think I'd be a millionaire like Dana White.
Well, here's what's great about Dylan: he calls out everyone that's not in Bellator, knowing he full know well how contracts work. Some of the fans don't. So he calls guys that are contracted in shows that he's not in and way bigger, but he never calls out any top guys in Bellator. So anyone who he can actually fight, he's not going to call out. It's kind of ridiculous. And he's not going to call out someone. And even me, old and retired, he wouldn't call me out, so I'd hop out of retirement and beat his ass.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Is that one guy that could get you out of retirement, Dylan Dennis?
Probably so.
Because hop out and kick his ass?
I'd still go and beat him easy. I mean, I already beat him in grappling, his own sport, and he's always he tried talking crap after I beat him. It's like, dude, I literally went into your own sport and beat you. Now you're trying to talk crap like you beat me in an MMA fight. You got no chance. But he's again, he's one of those guys who has a lot of followers. He's not liked, but he has a lot of followers. So Scott Coker will keep giving him easy fights, letting him pick his opponents. I suspect he'll never fight anyone top. I could be wrong. Maybe he'll fight some good guys, but he is a really good grappler. He's a legit, like, you know, close to world class grappler. He just hasn't really transitioned over. I don't think he has the courage to go out there and fight tough.
That's awesome. Okay, now I want to switch this to a media perspective here. Ariel Helwani out at ESPN after 3 years, going on to do his own thing, it sounds like. What is your take on that? You think this is Ariel going against the media to start his own thing, or is it just, is ESPN not a great fit for MMA? In my opinion, I don't love their coverage, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a ton about it. I don't really watch that much MMA journalism. I mean, I know Ariel is obviously in interviews with him. I haven't watched a lot of the stuff, but I do know he's extremely popular. I know people love Ariel for whatever reason, and yeah, that's what I love. I have nothing against him either. He's just not someone
No,
I
he
love.
seems like a nice enough guy, but I think he would. I remember Nick said like I think you start a lot of fights with the fighters, and
Yeah, I remember what there's some videos of Rampage punking him. It's pretty funny. It was worth looking up. Rampage didn't know who he was, and he goes, "Oh, wait, you're that Ariel guy talking crap?" Like punks him nonstop. But then I think he
yeah.
slowly grows to Rampage too. Like, all right, here's this instigating journalist. But I know he doesn't do terrible work, and he's really popular, so I think he'll be fine on his own. Maybe ESPN didn't want to pay him enough to do his own thing. Who knows what the issue is? But he's not going anywhere. He's been in the game forever. He'll adjust, and he'll be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I remember when Dana pulled his credentials, like all the fighters, the journalists, everyone were up in arms. So whatever you think personally of Ariel, like you said, his work is really good. He's been
Exactly. I
in
have
the game a
nothing
long
against
time.
him.
And at the end of the day, it's better for guys to go and do their own thing. There's like, why would you let ESPN take all the advertising money on your content when he's probably the biggest guy there.
Yeah, so he'll probably actually make more money. And that's what we realized. He was probably asked for a raise. ESPN didn't want to do it, so he decided to move on and do his own thing. And it's I mean, and that's where unfortunately with the fighters and UFC contract, guys are kind of the guys can go to Bellator, but UFC has that name recognition, so it makes it kind of tough.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got that huge name recognition now. We kind of laughed and you said for whatever reason. Have you ever had one of those Ariel Helwani interviews where he irks you or anything like that?
I get a lot of these MMA journalists mixed up, to be honest. I've done so many interviews, but I don't think so. I just remember seeing Nick annoyed with him. I remember seeing Nick and Rampage annoyed with him. So Nick being like, "Oh, you're always instigating things." Like, "Oh, this guy always is instigating things," and he just seems to be always super woke too, which is fine as long as you're not like criticizing people. He's not like, as far as I know, he's not like Bloody Elbow Bad, where they're like making up things, calling people racist. Those are the journalists I can't stand. So as far as I know, he's not like personally attacking people. So I got no issues with him.
All right, no, that's all right. I like Ariel too because he had a lot of recognition in Canada, right? I think he's like the first Canadian journalist to really get any traction.
Oh, that's right. He's Canadian too, huh? So that's up in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, well, he's from the French part, which would be why a lot of people think he's an asshole. There's tons of assholes in Quebec.
That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's funny shit. Now, you were back in Santa Monica, very much like Canada there, very strange. But I want to talk to you about Texas because I saw one of the fighters actually pulled out of the card on UFC 262, and I forget which fighter it was. Jack, can you check that up? But I know that they had said the commission is fucked up there, and they don't even want to fight under the Texas commission. Is that something you've ever known to be true? And are there certain states where like their commissions are like bullshit or whatever? Because that was the first time I've really heard of someone being that wired up about a commission where they won't even fight there.
Yeah, I've never.
So it's Ben Peterson.
Yeah, I've never said I wouldn't fight because of the commission, but there's some commissions that are way worse than others for different reasons. Sometimes they're just way more strict, way more stuff to deal with. At one point in California, when it first turned legal, they had this guy Armando Garcia was a commissioner. He was absolutely terrible. He was like an ex-cop. He hated MMA. He liked boxing. He was just like trying to make it hard. He would like hold weigh-ins 6 hours late when we're like miserable and just do stuff like that. Just yell at fighters for no reason, berate them like when there's literally nothing you can do because you can pull your contract. He'd pull fights off like the day of. Complete power tripping lunatic. Luckily, after like a year, he got pulled. I think he was doing something illegal, got in some kind of legal trouble, embezzling money, probably from the commission. But he was not a good guy. Maybe not want to fight in California. Other than that, nothing too bad. Vegas was a little ridiculous. They fined me after I punched Paul Harris, but he was trying to literally gouge my eyes out. So I don't think I really deserved a suspension for that. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. And he held a submission long too, isn't he? He was kind of known for that guy. How do you get on with him? Did you guys make amends after that?
No, I tried attacking him backstage. The guy's a complete sociopath. More than obviously holding the submission too long was bad, but trying to gouge my eyes out, there's no forgiving that.
I only saw the only reason I even brought that up is because he's liked a couple episodes of our podcast. So is that just him being a dickhead then?
I mean, maybe he's got nothing against me, but I don't know if it's a guy. I'm not gonna like someone trying to gouge my eyes out.
Hell no. And that's why I was going to bring it up when you said that, because I was like, oh, maybe they've made up since then. That's why I said that. That's the only reason is because I've noticed him like the podcast.
No, I'm not making up with someone to try to gouge my eyes out. He held a submission a little too long, something like that, but the guy was like, I was beating his ass, had mount, and I was teeing off on a mount, and he started gouging my eyes, and that's when I started breaking. So
And yeah, that'll piss you off too, because I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sure, we don't have to go into your contract, but certainly I imagine you had a bonus to win.
Oh yeah, for sure. So it costs a lot of money too, and that's what sucks about a lot of these fights. A lot of these contracts are 50% show, 50 to win. So guys losing can cost pretty big.
Yeah, and then when it's a bullshit thing like you're winning the fight, a guy eye pokes you, and then in the end you end up getting screwed, and then you lose more money for punching him and going at him after, right?
Yeah, so you lose the fight.
Did that cost you on top?
They find something that wasn't huge. I mean, in their defense, they gave me a really small suspension, a small fine. I think they felt like they had to do something. They weren't that bad about it, and I think they gave him like a lifetime ban. So they were on my side. So I did punch them. So it's not like they were that bad. So I did understand, but I was still a little irritated. They suspended me all, and that was the same commission. It was the same hearing where the girl in charge tried suspending Nate Diaz for life for marijuana use. She was, I think, and it turned out she was from Stockton. So I think she hated Nick probably because he was like the famous guy from Stockton. I wanted to give him a lifetime ban for smoking. And the commissioner,
can you imagine?
They fought back a little bit against the lifetime ban, so they ended up giving him a 5-year ban because other guys think they didn't want to push back against her, and it was so ridiculous. They got that reduced, but it was a 5-year ban for marijuana, and she pushed for a lifetime ban. Absolutely absurd.
That is absurd.
I was really pissed off at that meeting because I was there too. I stormed out of there, but I didn't want bigger suspension, so I'm like, I'm just leaving.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like you said, these people control all the cards at the end of the day. They can pull your fight. They can fuck your whole life up. Right. So you don't want to go in there.
If they give you a suspension like that, you can't fight anywhere. So they're like basically saying Nick couldn't fight for life, is what they're trying to say. Over marijuana smoke. It's like, give me a break. It's not a
Which is funny because I've seen grappling that you do with high rollers where when you win the tourney, you get a fucking pound of weed now. Like what a difference.
Because I mean, weed's not illegal anymore. It's not a performance enhancer. To say you can't smoke and fight is absurd.
No, exactly. And when they suspended, I remember back in the day, like to switch it to the NFL, there was that running back, Ricky Williams. He's like the best in the world. They ruined his career over smoking pot, called it a performance-enhancing drug.
Mm-hmm. I think some of these commissions still are testing for pot. I think the water recently stopped in the UFC, but some of these commissions still test and still will suspend people.
That's something they got to fix, man. But anyway, you got to head out to Arizona. Big fight this weekend. Nate Diaz, Leon Edwards. We have Vettori, Adesanya, and Figgy versus Moreno. Going to be a huge card. Looking forward to next week's episode. Should be a shit ton to talk about.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great card coming up. I'm super excited. Hopefully Nate will go out there and dominate. And definitely a good weekend.
I got Nate by submission in round 3. Let's go.
Nice.